Welcome to Order Militarist Radio TV, and we are lifelong Catholics. And what we do is all for free, and for our love of Jesus Christ, and for our Holy Mother, the Church, and we'll defend our Holy Mother, the Church. Today we're going to be talking about the mental illness of Russian propaganda that everybody is believing who's conservative. And we have Brother Alexis Bonello live in Kiev, Ukraine.
Thank you, AJ, for having an Order Militaris Radio TV, broadcasting out of Western Kansas. So we're a real international operation, and this is an important topic because ever since the war broke out, I've seen people going absolutely wacko. People who are upright, devout, respectful Catholics, sane, rational people, leaving very edified comments on social media. But when this war broke out, it's like they've completely lost it. They've turned into nasty, blasphemous, insulting, vicious, angry people. And it's like they've become possessed.
Yeah. So, what is the characteristics of the Russian of those believing in the Russian propaganda?
So let's start with the first one, AJ. You list them and we'll talk about them.
So, the Russian propaganda it pretends to be the enemy of the West, enemy of globalism, enemy of secularism. Just go on, and it's like, oh, he's a good Christian, Vladimir Putin.
So yeah, this is the most powerful way they get under the skins of everyone. So if you're a Christian, you realize your salvation comes from God, and you realize that just someone claiming to be Christian doesn't mean they're going to be a Christian. The other thing is that there is no revelation from God that Russia is going to save the world. Okay, so salvation comes from Jerusalem, from the church, it's from the Gospels. No, it's not from Russia. So it is true that we have major problems throughout the world because of globalism, because of secularism, because of the degradation of morals, and that our modern democracies are failing and destroying our cultures and our civilizations, our children, our education, our military, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so people want someone to save them from that. They want some strong Christian-like leader to come forth, and they're hoping it's someone. This is the same reason people are so hooked on MAGA, the MAGA weed. And once they get the sense that this person is their savior, they get hooked on it. It becomes like paradise has come to earth. I have my Messiah. Becomes a religion. It's unquestioning. You get angry if anyone denies your religion. And the religion is not in Jesus Christ. It's in this case, it's Vladimir Putin.
Yeah. It's like the cocaine of conservatives. Once they get their fix, they cancel being a human being. They cancel being believing Our Lady of Fatima. And when you show them the truth of what Russia is doing when Bucha, Irpin, Cherniv, like they don't believe it.
Mm-hmm. I have to use a biblical comparison. This is the messianism that Judas Iscariot had. He wanted a political Messiah to save him in this world, and he thought Christ was it. And he followed him for 3 years, and he served him faithfully and took care of the money. Well, not faithfully because he robbed the purse. But when he finally realized that Christ had no intention of being a political savior and overthrowing the Roman Empire, he turned on him 180 degrees like lightning, and engineered his death. And this is the same thing. These people, it's very psychologically addictive that the possibility that some human being is going to save you from everything. And this is not what Christianity is. We're not about a man saving us, about God saving us. And Putin doesn't even have the works of holiness. I mean, he assassinates people, blows up apartment buildings to advance his agenda, bombs whole provinces off the face of the map, has people gassed to death in theaters, and he has dissidents poisoned by the most devious methods, whether it's frog toxin or radioactive isotope injected into a leg from an umbrella. And I mean, there's really nothing that would, if you start knowing something about Putin, that would lead you to think he's your savior. So Russian propaganda only can have effect in a vacuum. It has no effect here in the Ukraine and in Poland, where the people know well who Putin is. But it's very effective in parts of the world where they don't have the foggiest idea. The Italian-speaking world, where not much of news around the world gets into the Italian language, so they're living in a fog, and most of them don't know other languages and don't try to know them. The Spanish-speaking world and the United States, where you can say Russia, but they probably can't follow them. I would say that Russian Federation, they don't know what you're talking about. So this is why it's effective and how it's effective. And it's just really sad that any intelligent person who's practiced the Christian faith could fall into it, because we're not supposed to have any Messiah but Jesus Christ. We have no Savior but God. Mm-hmm. And men in this world aren't going to save us from anything. I could see maybe if he was a holy person and a saint, but these people are not. I could see if he was like Constantine, but these people are not. So, if after the Soviet Union collapsed, Putin was baptized in Orthodox, became very devout, and was leading a party that was promoting the Orthodox religion actively. But he's more like, we'll find out in the program on Putin and his men that we're going to do on Monday.
Yeah.
The real truth of Putin. So, but in the meantime, it's just sad that some people should believe that Putin could be their savior from all these problems. What's the most ridiculous thing of it is, what are the problems in the West? The problems in the West don't come from the right, they come from the left. And the left is engineered and orchestrated by Russia, mm-hmm. which is the beehive of the Bolshevik Marxist revolution. They brought communism to China, Southeast Asia, South America, Europe, Cuba, and the United States. It all came from there, although it was engineered by the Skull and Bones in the United States. So it's a Rothschild project. And so why would you think that a Rothschild project who's funding the left in America is going to save you from the left in America? I mean, they've played people so well. They think the employees of the conspiracy against them are going to save them from the conspiracy against them. Mm-hmm. It's so perfect, such a perfect propaganda they put out.
Yeah. Who was prone to this?
I think it's the social media junkie, the person who is constantly watching the news. And I noticed this 20 years ago. My benefactors who watched the television before the internet was popular were always depressed and worrisome and neurotic. My benefactors who never watched the television were peaceful, happy, and joyful. Mm-hmm. And social media has come the same way. There are some people that read 40 different articles a day. They're going through it all because they're looking for salvation. They're looking for what they should be finding in God and prayer, in the church, in the saints, and a good book about reading the scriptures, or a good book about a saint. They're looking for in the news, and the news is just one story of horrors, tragedies, immoralities, perversions, betrayals, crimes, atrocities, murders. That who's going to end it all? Who's going to stop it all? Who's going to change the cycle? So it's like if you were obsessed with the ant colony outside your house where you put your garbage cans, that all you looked at was the ant colony. Pretty soon you'd be hoping one ant would take control of all the ants and lead them where they should go, but that's not the solution. You take out a bottle of Raid and you spray it. So, people who are, I know, and it's not just stupid people. I know people with several degrees who are internet junkies, and they all are sucked in by Russian propaganda. And they have this strange way of, I talked about this in the video I did from, they don't determine the truth of things by objective reality. So they don't have a degree in history or geopolitics, politics, or economics, or they don't know all the sciences and disciplines. And so when they read a news thing, they say, well, I know that media outlet, the London Times, I know they've lied about many things, so I'm going to assume they're going to lie about everything. And then the London Times publishes something like, butter is good for you. And they're like, I'm not going to eat butter anymore because the London Times said it. Because they've already determined that whatever the London Times says is false. And so they're allowing some secular entity to define truth and falsity. And if you do that, you're going to go crazy. These people are not the definitions of truth or of falsity. Newspapers don't lie 100% of the time. Some articles in a newspaper might be true and could be true and are true, and some are not.
Mhm.
So just because that you can't use that kind of rule to determine whether the truth it isn't, and yet people are using the most absurd rules to determine right and wrong. I mean, it's kind of like they go to a pub and they say, well, John's my friend, so he said it must be true. Well, and you find out later that, he had a gambling habit, went big in debt, and so he started swindling his friends, and you went along with the swindle because he was your friend for 20 years, but, you didn't know what was going on in his life.
Mhm.
So you can't use that criteria. Some human beings always tell me the truth. Got an intellect, you have time, research it, and see what people are saying about it, and look to see if it's sources. And is it talking facts, or is it just blather? We're going to do a show on Donald Trump next week, but a lot of the criticism of Donald Trump was just blather. It was just like useless theatrical stuff. You could see through it if you were using your intellect. Even if you didn't think well of Trump, you could see it was blather. So you have to use your critical intellect, and if you don't, you're just going to get sucked in. Russian propaganda falls apart immediately if you start asking questions.
Mhm. And there's one biggie they are working overtime on as of.
Yeah, so I'd say this is the cornerstone of Russian propaganda. There are Nazis in the Ukraine. The Nazis have a name called the Azov Brigade. They're in Mariupol. And if we can exterminate them from the face of the map, Russia will be saved from a second Nazi resurgence, just like she saved Europe.
Yeah.
And therefore, since that is their declared propaganda objective for this war, to justify their unjust war of aggression, it has to be true. So they're producing hundreds of videos weekly, putting out there saying this is how evil Azov is. And these videos are not in English. Some are in Ukrainian, some are in Russian, languages that no one in the West understands. And you can, if you're a native Ukrainian, you can understand if the person is fluent in Ukrainian or in Russian by the way they speak. There's certain words they can't pronounce on it. So is this a gang in a forest in Russia organized by the Russian secret services? And they're doing a theatrical thing where they're beating someone who they've hired and they're claiming it's Azov. Who is this? Where did this take place? Hundreds of these videos pour out. And you're foolish internet junkie. It's like, I've seen 27 videos that say they're Nazis. I haven't seen any video that says they're not, therefore they must be Nazis. They're using the crudest kind of thumb rule. Well, that's just wrong. If you have someone that doesn't like you and he sends 27 emails that defame and calumniate you to all your friends, what kind of a friend are they if they believe it and they never even call you up and ask, is this true? What's that?
Yeah. And then and you see people saying, "Oh, we shouldn't go and help them. You can't help them." And it's through this Russian propaganda, and it's through everything that Azov is put on these lists and saying, "You can't help these guys. You can't send them stuff." And then you see what they're actually doing here, and what they're actually doing from people you met. It was like,
Yeah, the first thing I have to say is it seems that people who believe the Russian propaganda against the Azov, truth won't affect them. You know, if you start asking questions about any video that proves Azov is a Nazi, oh, then you're a Nazi. You know, well, that's just not true. Is that video in Ukrainian or Russian? And people say, I don't know what language. If you don't know what language is, then how can you claim it proves anything?
mm-hmm.
They could be saying, you know, they could be talking about football while they're beating the guy. How do you? And you look at these videos, and no one's even wearing an Azov insignia, or no one's even anywhere looks like anyone from Azov. And you know, Azov is is hiding in the bunkers under a steel plant. Where do they get time to beat gypsies in public? So I looked into this because I had all these people just viciously attacking me on social media when I came to Poland, saying I was in favor of defending Ukraine. And so, well, you know, I'll have to admit, I saw Russian propaganda about Azov. I never really saw anything else about them, and so I was inclined to believe it. I said, let's look into it. And I found an article written by the recognized expert in both Russia and the Ukraine on neo-Nazi groups in the post-Soviet era. He has spent 30 years investigating these groups, visiting them, interviewing people. He wrote a whole 32-page article, I think it was, maybe 16-page article, saying Azov isn't Nazi at all. He says, first of all, if you ask any Jew in Mariupol, none will even say they were ever harassed by a member of the Azov brigade. Well, then how could they be Nazis? Well, see, people addicted to Russian propaganda say, well, they're not that kind of Nazi. They're a different kind of Nazi. Oh, well, you're going to change your definition now, you know. Or they'll say, oh, he's just a liar. He's a liar. He wrote books on Nazis in Russia and in Nazi movements in Ukraine. It's not Azov.
Mm-hmm.
Then there were some individuals in the first year that group was founded who were pro-Nazi or pro-fascist, but they were soon out of the group within the first year. Years later, the unit, which was a private militia raised by a Jewish oligarch to defend his mining interest in Donbass, became an organized part of the National Guard of the Ukraine, which is something between what in the United States we'd call National Guard and federal police. Okay. So I was very satisfied the other day when a woman comes up to me who had been in Italy. So she saw my habit, knew I was a friar. She started speaking to me in Italian. And we had a nice discussion. She says, come to lunch with me. So she invited me to lunch. It was very gracious. And at the table, herself and another Ukrainian that was there I said, what towns are you from? They said, we're from Mariupol. I said, really? So then I asked them all the questions. I said, they lived in Mariupol their whole lives. So, and they showed me their ID cards that show they're from Mariupol. So I asked them, have you ever heard a case where the Azov brigade beat anyone in public? They said, never. It's never happened. That is like damning testimony. That means all these videos are absolutely lies and Russian propaganda. Are they anti-Semitic? Certainly not. Are they cruel to people? Have they ever held anyone hostage, kidnapped anyone, tortured anyone, murdered anyone? Absolutely not. Did they hold anyone underground in the Azov plant against their will? Absolutely not. So I said, well, you are refugees from Mariupol. When did you leave? And one of the women said, I left Mariupol in February because I knew things were getting bad. the artillery started firing. And I said, do you have any family in Mariupol? She goes, yes, I do. My mother and sister still live in Mariupol. And I've heard from them several times over the phone. So she knows what's going on in Mariupol. And there's absolutely no one there who says what you hear in social media, on Telegram and Signal channels about Azov being Nazis. It's a complete myth. There's it's an, one photo from maybe 2014, even that, if that photo is true, it may be totally fake. And, it doesn't make sense too, because if people are vicious, they can't be courageous.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have consistent moral virtue from people who are vicious, evil people. And so that should end it right there. Now, I'm from Rome. I published that whole paper by the expert in Nazi groups. And, the people who sucked up Russian propaganda, they should have commented on that article and said, I apologize to you, brother, for calling you a Nazi in comments here. I apologize. I did a vicious thing and I need to repent and go to confession. Not a single one apologized. Not a single one. And people I've known for 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10 years. No apologies at all. What kind of a Christian are you? You call someone a Nazi and then find out that you're wrong and you don't apologize. This is the effect. It's their drug fix. It's like their ring that they want to wear, that ring of power. They get a fix when they're having it. And even when they see it was wrong to put it on, they're not going to admit to put it on because they're proud as jackasses. And they have no honesty. An honest man would admit he's wrong. And I bet the response to this video is going to be vicious attacks on all the channels we publish it, because these people are just absolutely addicted in. And when you accept propaganda, you become as evil as the people that produce it. So now they're just like glorifying the death of Ukrainians, the rape of youths, although they're absolutely in denial. Mm. It's like, oh, it could never happen. No, or if it did, it was the National Guard who shot people.
And then the Eastern Holy Saturday, Azov, they have to defend when before the UN got in there for a ceasefire to get the people out of the steel works. Azov was busy protecting and babysitting kids and helping the mothers, grandmothers, while taking care of the Russians. But they did not forget that it was Easter. That on Easter, Ukrainian little kids get gifts. And what did they do? They scrounged, they found stuff, wrapped it up, gave it to the kids, and the kids just lit up and fist bumped the guys, and it's like if they were really monsters, they would not do that.
Mm-hmm. And I bet a fair number of the people criticizing them probably don't give gifts to children at Easter time either, because they're monsters. Mm-hmm. Let's get face of it. What kind of a man are you who wants to accuse someone in a foreign land of being Nazis to justify their country being genocided by a foreign power? And you don't get upset about Nazi groups in your own country. There's Nazi groups in England, France, Spain, the United States, Italy. Why aren't you railing against them? You've never railed against them. Mm-hmm. Now, why is it all of a sudden? No, because you have to rail against helping the Ukraine, because you're such a cowardly knave, you won't even say that they deserve to be helped, because you don't give a bleep that Christian families are being genocided, murdered, raped, tortured, vivisected, blown to bits, robbed, and deprived of the property. You don't care about that, because you're not a Christian. You just pretend to be a conservative, but you're a godless political ideologue, and you're really left-wing. Because if you want to throw a whole country to the dogs because there's 300 or 600 Nazis in it, that is an extremely left-wing Marxist concept. And if you're living by it, you are a left-winger.
Yeah.
As left as it can be. You are more left than Hillary Clinton, because at least she wants to defend Ukraine.
Yeah. Then last night, and we don't agree with everything with Sean Penn. The guy is a left-winger loon, but the left-wingers are doing stuff. Sean Penn saying, I want to use my money. I want to get all the billionaires, millionaires together. You're like, if they're not going to send those guys planes, we need to do it.
Yeah, that is the values that Americans had before the war. So the left has become the right and the right has become the left. This is the crazy things in America. Why? Because people aren't following the teaching of Jesus Christ and holding fast. And I have these, people are snorting Russian propaganda say, brother, you've turned into a left winger. No, I haven't changed at all. During the pandemic, I was supporting a Christian Catholic position. During the war in Ukraine, I support a Christian Catholic position. I haven't changed at all. The events of history have changed, but I haven't changed. And to say I have is to basically say I never was doing what I was doing out of love of Jesus Christ. I was a fraud back then and I'm a fraud now. I mean, if you have to descend to that level, and you've been following me on social media for 2-3 years, even donating to my apostolate, you have to admit there's a profound transformation that's come over your mind.
Yeah. And there's another Russian propaganda deal saying, well, actually, it's Russian and also conservative propaganda. Oh, we got overflowing borders. We got to protect our own here. I was like, oh, there's no baby formula in this story, but we can send billions of dollars to Ukraine. And I was like, you know what? If we truly wanted to fix this, it would be the states who take control of their borders and fix it. Then I put on today on Twitter, you know, the pioneers, when they settled out west, they had no baby formula. In World War II, mothers didn't have baby formula, but the kids survived. And one guy commented was like, "Are you a joke?" I was like, "No, are you?"
What if you are conservative? You should be praising the Ukraine. Why? Because they're doing to defend their borders what you have never done, but say should be done. Now, 1 million illegal immigrants come into the United States every year, more than 1 million. The Russian army only sent 180,000 to the Ukraine, and you see what Ukraine did. They raised 1 million men, armed them, and sent them to the front lines and kicked those Russian butts. Now, where are all the conservatives in the United States who are touting their gun rights? Why aren't they going to the border to defend the borders?
Mm-hmm.
No, because their patriotism ends right here.
Mm-hmm.
On the list. They're absolute fakes and frauds. Now, there are some good conservatives that are helping Arizona and Texas police. I don't deny that. But in comparison to everyone who claims that we're talking about 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of 1/10 of a percent. So don't give me the idea I'm a conservative. I have the right to criticize all the people who are defending Ukraine. You don't have the right at all. You gave it up a long time ago when the problem with the borders started happening in the United States, and you did absolutely nothing. You didn't even found a gun club to go to the front, and you didn't even volunteer. Maybe at most you'll give some money to the border guard. Maybe you'll tweet something out and praise them. Now, I'm not saying all of the critics of those who are defending Ukraine are that way, but criticism should begin at home.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about the dirty houses in a foreign country and you don't clean your own house, you're an absolute hypocrite. Now, I'm totally for defending the borders of the United States, but there's nothing I personally can do. I don't bear a gun, and I don't have money. But here in Order Militaris, we are for defending Christian rights. And you have to admit that when 180,000 people come over in military units to attack a country, that is more serious of a threat than illegal aliens coming to the country.
Yeah.
But something should be done on both. And if conservatives, instead of lamenting about the government and the war in the Ukraine, started doing something about the corruption in the American government and the total chaos in the national borders, then, maybe they would admire the Ukrainians for staunchly doing what they've been saying should be done in America. This is what I don't understand is like, you've been saying all along your house needs to be cleaned up, your borders, your doors need to be locked, you need to have guns at home to defend them so that illegals don't get in. This is what Ukraine's doing. Why are you criticizing them? Don't you realize by not supporting the Ukrainian war, you, the American conservative, have shown yourself to be a complete fraud? A complete fraud. You just abandoned your entire ideologic position because the Democrats ran to the Ukraine first to defend them.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add?
My experience in the Ukraine is that the vast majority of Ukrainians are what we in America would call conservative Christians. They're so conservative that when they see me walk down the street, because they don't know what a Franciscan friar is, I wear a tunic, goes all the way down. They think it's a dress, and to see a man in a dress is like just abhorrent to them. And it's not all the men, but a good number of them, because me, the absent stares like, you freak, get out of here. Now, I understand the misunderstanding because they're Orthodox and haven't seen a friar. But I don't condemn them for the reaction. Now, why is it that means the Democrats running to help the Ukraine are actually not of the same morals or values or politics of the people in the Ukraine? But what are the Ukrainians are now? The Ukrainians now are getting the wrong message from America. They're getting the message that the left in America is supporting them and the right has abandoned them. That the Christians in America won't help them, but the Marxists will. And so conservatives, by following Russian propaganda, sucking it up, and totally abandoning your ideology, have allowed Russian propaganda to turn them into Marxists and are confusing Ukrainians about who is their true ally. So, I mean, you just totally destroyed yourself. If you're a Republican, you call yourself conservative. If you are, say, you're in favor of Christian rights, whether you're pro-life, whether you're pro-family, whether you're pro-gun, whether you're pro-controlled borders, if you follow Russian propaganda, you just abandon your entire position. You just abandon it all. And that's mental sickness, because that's just insanity. It's suicide, spiritual, intellectual, and political suicide.
Yep. So please like and share this program. And stay tuned for Monday when we go into the book Putin's People and expose who made Vladimir Putin. It's going to be one of these shows.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great follow-up in practice of what we've been doing programs at Ordo Militaris here for now a year and a half, more than a year and a half, about globalism, Freemasonry, and the World Economic Forum. So you'll find it very interesting. AJ has a wonderful book, Putin's Men, that he's been digging into. And it really opens your eyes to the facts, just to cite the facts, So let's just talk about facts. We can't close our eyes to that. Thank you for having me on this program with Ordo Militaris Radio TV. And if you like this program, please look at the donation button or link at the bottom of this program's page and send a donation we can use to pay the expenses of the website or to buy equipment. It does not go to salaries to AJ or myself. He does everything free on this network to get out the truth for your sake.
Yep. This is Ordo Militaris Radio TV, sending in Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.